All eyes now on that big debate later on today. And to discuss that further, who else better to turn to than journalist and broadcaster, the absolute legend that is Alastair Stewart. Alastair, always an absolute delight to have you on the show, and this time in particular because, of course, that TV debate, the one that defined modern political debate on television in 2010, you chaired it. Clegmania was born. We're holding you partly responsible, Alastair. Tell us how important these TV debates can be and share your memories of that amazing night.
Well, the real significance of that first one was the word first. And I've got the picture up there. I don't know if you can see it. Up over my shoulder there. You had Gordon Brown, Dave Cameron, Nick Clegg, who virtually nobody knew about. And by the end of the evening, everybody was agreeing with. And the fact that it went ahead at all was really significant. There were debates also on the BBC, which David Dimbleby did. Sky had one with Adam Bolton. And all of us afterwards said the real thing that was missing from it in all of the debates that we did was the actions of the electorate, the people who were there. They had their question to ask, whether it was on housing, the economy, defence, whatever it might have been. But there wasn't a lot of interplay. What I don't know is whether Julie Etchingham on ITV has got licence to allow a bit more of that. Because I think it would make it a better event, rather like the GBNews People's Forums are so much more lively. And I think we might then see these two men really tested. Because in my humble opinion, and I've debated and chaired a debate with the Prime Minister, I think Sunak does fairly good pat answers, but he's really sharp if he's questioned and challenged by ordinary citizens and voters. And if that happens, then I think Sunak will breathe the first sigh of relief that he's been able to breathe for quite some time. I'm not quite sure what Starmer can do, because they're a real test of charisma and character. And although I'm entirely impartial in these matters, I don't think that Sir Keir scores very high on either of those. I'm not quite sure what he can do to make him suddenly seem a lively, deft, fast on his feet man of the people.
Now, Alastair, of course, Clegmania gripped the nation after that. As you said, everybody agreed with him. Nobody had heard of him before that. For Nick Clegg, it basically became a career-defining moment. Rishi Sunak seems to be pinning an awful lot on these TV debates, so much so, in fact, Alastair, he wanted 6 of the things. It seems that Rishi Sunak really is the one with the most to gain from this. And Sir Keir Starmer, who's riding away in the polls, he has the most to lose.
I think that that's probably true, and I can understand Rishi's problem in that respect. The only thing I'd caution about is those that think they're really good at telly, and in some respects are really good at telly. I'd include Dave Cameron in that. He's a friend of mine. I've known him for a long time. And he was by far and away the most deft television performer historically. But to me, that night, all those years ago, he was a little bit like a bunny in the headlights. It seemed to overwhelm him slightly. And if that's the image that Rishi Sunak leaves people with at home tonight, then he'll have a real problem. I mean, listening to Chris and you chatting about these possibilities of candidates switching to reform after what Nigel did, 2 things struck me. One is whether what's happening to the Conservative Party now is what happened to the Labour Party after Michael Foot, with the creation of the SDP and the defections from the Labour Party to the SDP. I mean, I think that the Reform Party, it's got Farage now, but it needs a few more big guns. Remember, the SDP had Roy Jenkins, Shirley Williams. I mean, these were towering figures of their day. But we don't know who these 6 people are. Chris Hope knows who they are, but he knows the rules of the game better than any of us. So I suspect we might hear 1 or 2 of the names before the day is out. But it could be a turning point for the Conservative Party, and I find that fascinating. And I wrote down, knowing that I was going to be talking to you, the 2 debates I'd really love to witness, and even chair if it was possible, would be Nigel Farage versus Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer versus Diane Abbott. Then we'd really see what the differences were.
A tantalising prospect, both of them. Alastair Stewart, it's just always an absolute delight to speak to you on your finest form as a legend. Thanks very much, mate, for joining us on the show this afternoon.
Martin,
Wonderful.
good to talk to you as always, my friend, and thank you for having me on.
Wonderful, mate. Lovely. Thank you very much. Humbling moment. What an absolute stellar talent. Now, just a reminder of those who have declared their candidacy in the constituency of Clacton thus far. Jovan Osu, Nepal, Labour Party, Giles Watling, Conservative Party, Matthew Bensalem, Liberal Democrats, Nigel Farage, Reform UK, and Natasha Osborne of the Green Party. That list of candidates isn't yet finalised, as the deadline isn't until later this week, about 5 p.m. Friday, in fact. And that list will be published on the GBNews website once it is fully finalised. And GBNews has extended an interview invitation to all of those candidates. If you're listening, please join us. Let's talk.